In Sunday's video, we discussed telepathy. Now, over the years, on the journey of studying and applying this information, this ability seems to expand. Like with anything you focus upon, the individual becomes so altered that the potency of the effect also seems to expand. If you imagine others and are self-persuaded that they really are that way, going beyond if you had experienced them otherwise in the past, they appear to transform when they return to your presence to reflect your thoughts of them. In business, we see this with team members, clients, and those that we deal with. And in our personal lives, we see this in our family, relationships, friendships, and others who we come across each day in public even. This is because consciousness is actually one and non-divisional. And although the five-sensory experience may suggest otherwise from a physical perspective, from an absolute perspective, consciousness is one. So built on this foundational understanding, today we explore some of the works of William Walker Atkinson with regards to telepathy and thought transmission. Today we focus on telepathic communication and also what he calls influencing en masse, which is the ability to influence crowds, like while in public, and also drawing like-minded people to you, something that I've noticed over the years of applying this. If you're a performer, public speaker, I trust you'll find this part valuable. Also, it is important to acknowledge that what we realize as a result of working with this information is that this is really about influencing ourselves. This is really about our degree of self-persuasion, of how we believe reality works as we relate with others, and how we believe they relate with us. Whatever we subconsciously accept as true in relation with them. We let others be. No need to convince or persuade them. They merely reflect the thoughts about ourselves in relationship with them, which is what we have accepted as true. So William Walker Atkinson, prior to writing 100 and perhaps even more books on mental phenomena, was a successful lawyer and credited his success and performance to the study and application of this information. He then went on to share his findings in the last 30 years of his life alongside deeper study, in which he released his gold mine of wisdom through his books under his two publishing companies, Advanced Thought Publishing and the Yogi Publication Society. Yogi Publication Society, if you're not familiar, is the publishing company that released the Kabbalion by three initiates, which, upon connecting these dots, would indicate that he wrote the Kabbalion, although some of my sources say it also included Paul Foster Case and Michael Whitty, who were said to have been corresponding with him around that time. Some of the other aliases include Theron Q. Demond, Yogi Ramacharaka, and one of my personal favorite aliases, Magus Incognito, with which he wrote The Secret Doctrine of the Rosicrucians, which upon reading it bears a striking resemblance to the Kabbalion, namely the 7 principles of the Kabbalion, which are echoed under slightly different names in the Secret Doctrine of the Rosicrucians, labeled as the 7 cosmic principles, whereas in the Kabbalion they're labeled as the 7 hermetic principles. Today we discuss his works with respect to thought transmission. So the premise is my notes here from his work. When a thought or feeling is generated in the mind of a person, the energy generated flows forth from the person in the form of waves of mental energy, spreading from the immediate neighborhood of the thinker to a distance proportioned to the strength of the thought or feeling. These thought waves have the property of awakening similar vibrations in the minds of other people coming within their field of force, according to the laws of mental influence. And I trust that we've all felt this when relating with others to some degree. Perhaps when someone enters into a room, the invisible, subtle energy factors that we are still understanding further till this day, like, for example, thought waves or thought vibrations. And although we have gotten to understanding it more so, I believe that there's a lot more to this. For example, in the 1990s, it was found that our brains have what is known as mirror neurons. These mirror neurons in our brain play a role in the ability to understand the intentions and emotions of others. They play a role in explaining why we see imitation of others. This discovery has certainly opened up new understandings of how we relate with others, yet I believe there's so much more subconscious, 95% or more, which perhaps at some point we will explain the mental phenomena we discuss in those who have cultivated. Nevertheless, we still have access to it, each of us do, and can apply it whether we can explain it or not. So let's look at influencing at a distance. He says, the first of these two methods consists in sitting or standing in a quiet place, or rather in some place in which you can concentrate and then direct your thought waves toward the other person, forming in the imagination a mental picture of the power flying from you toward the other, like tiny sparks of electricity or of a subtle fluid. This mental picture tends to give a concentrative power to the current which renders them powerful and sends them direct to the desired spot. The second of these two methods, simply stand or sit quietly and concentrate your mind until you attain the state of mental calm, known to many as the silence. Then create a strong mental picture of the person treated, surrounded by the conditions desired or doing the things desired to be done. This is one of the highest forms of mental influence and really approaches a higher plane of influence than that of the mental plane as generally known. A picture of a person held in the mind this way, the person being seen in perfect, robust health and happy and successful, tends to materialize the same conditions in the person in real life. So either one of the two imply the same thing. The ability to imagine someone a certain way and accept that suggestion. From there, all the known and unknown ways allow it to happen. All we do is hold that mental picture in our mind's eye until we feel satisfied that the suggestion has been accepted into the subconscious and the act is done. So both ways of the above keep two factors into consideration here, he says. The two principal factors in the manifestation of mental influence in all of its forms are what are known as, number one, concentration, and number two, mental imaging. Concentration is a word derived from two Latin words, con, a prefix meaning to, and centrum, meaning center or fixed central point. The two words combined mean literally to bring to a common point, to focus. Thus the word concentration is seen to mean literally the act or state of bringing to a fixed point or focus. Borrowing an analogous illustration from physical science, we readily see that the highest forms of energy, force, or power are manifested by bringing the force to a focus, center, or common point, thereby directing to that point the entire energy employed, instead of allowing it to become dissipated over a larger area. The electricity generated by a battery or dynamo, if allowed to diffuse itself over a large surface, manifests but a small degree of the power that may be obtained from it by compelling it to discharge itself from a small point of focus. So there holds the key. Imagine and accept the suggestion. That's the way it is. Silence the mind to accept the suggestion. Like, that's the way it is. You see, many beliefs are helpful in our day-to-day lives. However, The ones that are not resonant to this way of relating with each other are released during the invisible act. So, for example, in application, if you have a business, take a team member in which the relationship does not seem to be harmonious. Apply this by imagining them in a way that they would ideally relate with you, perhaps prior to interacting with them. Set the intention that it would go well using one of these two ways. Then during the interaction or after, inwardly acknowledge, even to the slightest degree, that they resemble the change. They will demonstrate it to some degree. Continue to imagine them as ideally. Soon they will mirror that ideal fully. And you'll notice that you did not have to argue, force, or convince them to change. They change on their own. Now, as you continue to apply this, you would also have dissolved doubt-based beliefs regarding this power, and you'll notice that the changes happen more instantaneously wherever you go. I've applied this wherever I had the desire to do so in both business and personal life, and it has never been known to fail. This is actually the best way I found to evolve a relationship. Gone are the days of unnecessary force, argument, frustration. Imagine yourself ideally in relation with them and accept that suggestion as that's the way it is. This image impresses upon the subconscious mind, and the thought transmission occurs alongside any other known and unknown effects to let it happen automatically from the change initiated within. Now let's talk about influencing en masse, which is the same thing, only applied to groups and crowds. Now, just like sending messages to another using these methods, which, by the way, I also do it through autosuggestion, like, for example, a simple statement. They're going to call me, or they'll eventually call me, or we always have a good time. When they show up, they play out those thoughts. The key is in accepting that that's the way it is and going on with your life. Generating thoughts of disharmony in relation to the suggestion after the act only causes unnecessary suffering in mind. Accept the suggestion and go on. Allow the subconscious mind to take care of everything for you. Also, I'd like to add that although we might not know what they're thinking at the time, I have had reports where I shared over the discussions that they were thinking of me at the same time I was thinking of them, which proves there being one consciousness. It is a matter of suggesting it to yourself and accepting that suggestion. Autosuggestion in state akin to sleep also helps, as we discussed 2 weeks ago. I'll link in the description to that video. So imagine with me for a moment where you would consider yourself to be on. You were in your flow. You were walking down the street and everyone was smiling at you. Everyone seemed friendly, approachable, and if you did talk to them, they responded favorably. As a matter of fact, you might even notice interesting people. Personalities that you perhaps always wanted to meet seemed to be there. Maybe you even thought, where have they been all this time? Well, all of that is actually a form of something you were doing subconsciously, which now we're bringing conscious awareness to it, in which he refers to it as influencing en masse. He says there's another phase of the subject that must not be overlooked, and that is the influencing of large numbers of people by some active, strong projector of mental influence. This form of manifestation of the power is known as mental influencing en masse. En masse, of course, means in a body or in a crowd, and mental influencing en masse means the use of the influence in the phase of exerting a strong, attracting, or directing power to the mind or the crowd, or rather the public, or a large number of people. In fact, this influence in some degree is used by nearly all who succeed in any form of business or profession in which success calls for the attraction of other people toward the occupation of the person in question. They send out the thought waves consciously and deliberately, holding the mental image strongly to it, so that in time their sweeps of mental currents reach further and further away and bring a greater number of people under the influence and into the field of attraction. They treat the public en masse by holding the strong mental picture of that which they desire and then sending out strong thought currents of desire in all directions, willing that those coming within their radius shall be attracted to the ideas expressed in the mental image projected in all directions. You will readily see from what has been said that an individual who has cultivated the faculty of concentration and has acquired the art of creating sharp, clear, strong mental images, and who, when engaged in an undertaking, will so charge their mind with the idea of success, will be bound to become an attracting center. And if such individual will keep their mental picture ever in their mind, even though it may be in the background of their mind, when they are attending to the details and planning of their affairs, if they will give their mental picture a prominent place in their mental gallery, taking a frequent glance at it and using their will upon it to create new scenes of actual success, they will create for themselves a center of radiating thought that will surely be felt by those coming within its field of influence. Such a person frequently sees people coming to them, and their enterprises are falling in line with their plans. It is astonishing to witness how events, people, circumstances, and things seem to move in place in actual life, as if urged by some mighty power to serve to materialize the conditions so imagined in the mind of the individual. Thought pictured in mental images and then vitalized by the force of the desire will tend to objectify themselves into material things. This is the whole thing in a nutshell. So the key part is this. And if such an individual will keep their mental picture ever in their mind, even though it may be in the background of their mind, when they're attending to the details and planning of their affairs. So this is essentially operating from your vision with momentum. Influencing en masse happens with momentum, as he says, and I find as well, as the power continues to amplify by releasing identification to thoughts of disharmony in relation to others, while thoughts of harmony show up in mind. These thoughts of harmony and images compel you forward, vitalized by desire. Not enough desire, and a person may no longer care of their journey. Too much desire, and they feel overwhelmed. The mental images thus harmonize with desire. They are in harmony, a nice dance, not too much, not too little, a nice flow, a harmony. A person embodies throwing out thought vibrations which is felt by others all around them, as there's something magnetic about a person charged by desire, channeled towards a vision, as you are surrounded by others in harmony with your vision. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's go ahead and conclude this with an autosuggestion to further encourage. You could say, I call upon the invisible power through the image in my mind, all people, resources, and opportunities to bring forth my vision in a mutually beneficial way. I see others ideally, and they show up that way wherever I go. This increases each day as others show up, confirming the ideal thoughts in harmony in a mutually beneficial, loving way. As a result, I see the vision of what is to come, and others see the same as they show up, acknowledging that they saw the same image to play out in a mutually beneficial way, as all minds are one mind, imagining the ideal way. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk with you soon. Take care.